Okay, welcome back to the Lexi J Wellness Podcast, my friends. I am your host, Lexi Johnson, and this is my husband and co-host, Brett. Today, or this week, we're actually going to talk a little bit about 75 Hard, and if you're unfamiliar with 75 Hard, we'll explain and go into a little more depth. But 75 Hard essentially is a mental toughness program, and it was created by Andy Frisella, a man that Brett and I both really admire and respect a great deal. This is our fourth time completing 75 Hard, and do you want to kind of go through the program, the requirements, the stipulations?
Yeah, so there are essentially, 5 different elements to it. At this point, it's just the norm for us. I don't even really think about it, but there is an indoor workout, a 45-minute indoor workout. There's a 45-minute outdoor workout. One workout has to be outdoors. You have to drink a gallon of water. You have to abide by a diet and no cheat meals. And what am I missing here?
Take a daily photo.
Yep, take a progress photo.
And read 10 pages of a self-developmental book.
Yep.
And the thing is, it's 75 days, and if you mess up or if you slip up, if you fail to meet one of those requirements, then you're supposed to start at day one the next day. And while those lists of requirements, you're hearing, workout, diet, water, you're thinking, okay, this isn't a mental toughness program or a mental program. This is absolutely a fitness challenge. And that's where people often get or there's a kind of a discrepancy. And until you really experience it yourself, it's hard to put into words and to understand the absolute mental transformation that you get. Obviously, if you complete 2 45-minute workouts and you maintain a diet that is going to yield whatever outcome goals you have specific for yourself, which is another thing that we can go into later. Just being a health and fitness professional myself, I love that aspect of the program because it's not a cookie cutter, okay, you're going to do a Whole30 or a keto or something like that. It is a diet that you make yourself, that you set those parameters at the beginning, and then you withhold those standards throughout the entire program, which I think is really cool. And it also kind of just doubles down on the integrity of the program, because at the end of the day, you make those stipulations and you frame that diet for yourself with the understanding that you could make it softer or make it less rigorous, but you're going to get out of it exactly what you put into it. So for instance, we do a macro tracking diet. It's the most flexible, I believe, when it comes to lifestyle maintenance, maintaining health and fitness beyond just 75 days. And it's also one that you can tailor it to your needs. So I say, less rigorous, but macro tracking can be as strict or as lenient as you want. For instance, I went into this round of 75 Hard not necessarily wanting to cut a whole ton, just because I was in a good position physically to begin with, that I was ready to maintain that weight and just really hone in on the mental aspects and work on the mental transformation, as well as maintaining the physique that I had curated up to that point. Mind you, we started this at the end of October, so we were heading into, I actually, when I decided that I was going to do this round of 75 Hard, and I text Brett, so I was at a wedding with my sister. I text Brett at 1 a.m. I'm like, I think I'm going to do 75 Hard tomorrow. And Brett's exact response was, well, I'm not going to watch you do it. So, of course, my right-hand man, my partner in crime, Brett and I basically do everything together. So, of course, he was in on it. But it was the end of October. So, the following week was Halloween. Not that we're big Halloween people, but, that's one holiday. And then we have Thanksgiving, a holiday just surrounded by food. We have Christmas and that whole Christmas season, and Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve.
Your sister's 21st birthday.
My sister's 21st birthday. We went to Nashville. I had a company trip. I got to take my entire team to Phoenix. So I very easily, we went out to eat. I took them to get ice cream, and I didn't participate, but I still wanted to be part of those memories. What else? I was a bridesmaid in one of my best friend's weddings. I pulled numerous all-nighters for work We had out of town work trips, and Brett and I both had stretches where we were sick. So just maintaining that discipline throughout and keeping those promises individually to ourselves, and just to uphold the integrity of the program that we respect so much, that was huge for us. And despite it being more of a maintenance phase, which a lot of people can say, well, that was hardly a diet. I would argue that going through Thanksgiving and Christmas and holidays and birthday parties and all these events, these big lifestyle or big, milestone events, while upholding a diet and having no compromises with them, not making a single negotiation. We're hitting our protein, we're hitting our calories every day, and we're not having that leniency with ourselves. Because when you start to bend on those standards that you say you uphold, then you bend everywhere. It's not just your diet, it's your physical fitness, it's your spiritual health, it's your relationship. When you start making those compromises in one area of your life, then the cracks start to form in every area. And you can kind of go into your experience.
Yeah. It's honestly kind of wild whenever you were going back and kind of reliving everything that we have done over the past 75 days. You kind of forget, because 75 days, in the grand scheme of things, isn't that long. But I think that we grew a lot over the last 75 days. Just because this is our fourth time doing it doesn't mean that it means less to me at this point, I guess, because I learn something new about myself every time. But whenever you're listing all those things that we worked our way through, and I kind of forgot about a few of them, but the fact that, we usually don't do it this time of year. We've kind of made an annual thing, honestly, but typically we don't do it this time of year. So it was a new thing for us, in the sense that we did it over the major holidays, in my opinion,
Yeah,
with the exception of the 4th.
And we live in Missouri, where it was like record cold temperatures. We did our outdoor walks in -10 degrees with
Right.
the wind chill of like -30. So that just adds another layer
While we
of
were sick.
complication. Yeah, while we were sick. Another layer of complication, another thing that would have been easily justifiable to say, okay, well, I mean, this time we'll do it inside. We'll do that 45-minute walk or that 45-minute ruck, but we'll do it on the treadmill instead. And although you're still doing something, and you can kind of pat yourself on your back and make that a justifiable accomplishment, that, hey, I mean, you still did something. Something's better than nothing. But that something wasn't what we set out to do. And when you compromise on that, I'm not going to pat myself on the back for meeting myself halfway. Like, that's not the standard I upheld. That's not going to sit well with me.
Yeah. It truly does. Every year it's a good reset for me. It's a good mental reset. And everyone always thinks about it in terms of the physical demands that it has for you, because obviously there's the workouts, but more than anything for me, it's the mentality that I have. And I see that just start to shape my mind in all facets of my daily life, because if I have this general understanding that I'm going to execute on everything that I set out to do, and I'm not going to make any exceptions no matter what the circumstances are, then I start thinking, okay, well, what else can I be doing? Because I can clearly do more. And inevitably, you go through ebbs and flows throughout the year. At certain times of the year, it seems like everything is just flow state. You feel great, and everything is going smoothly, and then out of nowhere you slough off a little bit, and things it happens fast, before you even really realize it's happening. And then really a lot of times the realization happens whenever I do 75 hard again, and then I realize, okay, well, man, I didn't realize I'd kind of sloughed off for a little bit, but now that I realize that I'm operating at full capacity, I feel great, and I realize what I was not doing before. And even though it's a pretty regular thing for us to continue to do on an annual basis, it's amazing to me that I still am. It's the human part of me, we have this recency bias. Things become the norm so fast.
Yeah.
And unless you really hone in on that self-improvement and constant self-improvement. And we hold ourselves to a very high standard. I mean, it's not like I'm sitting around eating potato chips on the couch, but, you know, getting that second workout in every day, and no exceptions. I mean, doesn't matter what the weather is, doesn't matter what my schedule is, making sure that I get my pages in, which we do every morning. That's our first thing that we do every morning.
On and off 75 hard.
Right.
Which I think, as you said, like it's a recency bias, and the way that we utilize the program is as a recalibration. So I mentioned this like when I did my little social media recap of 75 hard, and my photos, I mean, like I am a little bit more defined in my most recent photos, as inevitably you will be maintaining a diet. And like we had said, you know, off 75 hard, our operations they're pretty similar. Like we still hold ourselves to a very high standard. We work out consistently, we get our water, we read those pages, you know. So it's not something where we don't necessarily utilize it as a complete lifestyle change. And we can kind of go into a little bit further depth about like utilizing it there and using it as a launch pad to basically flip the switch on a past life or a past version of you, and unlocking your potential and realizing, okay, I am capable of so much more. I have been holding myself to a standard that I can, you know, exceed far and beyond. And now that it's one of those things, like the first time we ever did 75 hard, we're like, okay, wow, I have been underselling myself so much. And actually kind of just reflecting on this past experience and talking to other people that had reached out, you know, saying that they were considering it and what my experience had been. So I was reflecting, and the first time that we ever did 75 hard was just a few months before I started Lexi Wellness. I was still a full-time dental hygienist, and I was thinking, like, there is not a doubt in my mind, there is no way that I would have pursued Lexi Wellness had I not completed it, just because it gave me that mental fortitude. And looking back, like when I began, my confidence compared to how it is now, it's night and day. But it's wild to think that like that gave me the self-esteem and the grit that, okay, well, I'm capable of way more. I can go for way more. But yeah, the way that we utilize the program for now is definitely more of a recalibration of habits. It kind of just hones in, because if you're not willing to take that consistent audit of yourself, and you're not, you know, taking an inventory of your gaps, whether it is physical, mental, professional, marital, like Brett and I doing it together, every single time we do it, I swear our relationship gets better. Like our bond gets better. And my heart hurts so bad for people that do it and have a partner or a significant other or just someone really close to them that is unsupportive of that, because that would make 75 hard 75 harder, and it also would inevitably put a strain on our relationship if we were in that position. So man, that would be really, really hard. But it is something that has benefited us and continues to benefit us in every realm. It's really wild, and it's like I had mentioned, it's one thing that you don't understand until you experience it yourself.
Yeah. Do you think that 75 hard has a way of amplifying either your good or bad qualities?
Yeah, I was thinking, so my bad qualities, I'm extremely difficult on myself as is.
Let's say opportunistic qualities. Try to make it seem
Yeah, my areas of opportunity. I'm extremely hard on myself as is, and it holds me to an even higher degree. Like when I was sick, I told Brett, so I was homesick and I was out bad. Like those outdoor workouts were rough. You know, the indoor workouts, I was on the treadmill just walking. And finally, I say finally, but it was probably like the second or third day, I text Brett and I'm like, I'm going to do 1,000 sit-ups today. Because I work from home, I'm working at home, and I'm like, because if I act like a healthy person, eventually I'll feel like a healthy person. And although I was sick and I was still hitting macros and still, you know, hitting those non-negotiables, I felt like a piece of shit, honestly. I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I felt like I was cheating the program. Despite still consistently checking those boxes, I felt like I wasn't reaching that potential. And it does, like, sometimes it puts me into a place where I'm like, I don't know that it's necessarily negative, but it highlights the ridiculously ambitious side of me, which is, I think it's a good. But to the good side of it, and something that I was thinking is that from a leadership standpoint, and I'm at a point where my internal team is definitely growing, and then like the Lexi J Wellness community in general, it's growing. So the audience at which that I have, like the audience that I get to lead, I have the opportunity to lead a really large group, or a relatively large group. And if you're holding yourself to such a high standard, and you know for a fact that you're not compromising, and that you're holding the integrity line across all realms, you can ask that of the people that are following you. You can ask that of the people that report to you, because then you know for a fact that there's no calling you out on your bullshit. You guys ever had like that high school coach, or like, you know, I'm like thinking the stereotypical like overweight PE coach that's like, all right, you need to run a mile in 6 minutes, and you're thinking in the back of your head like, okay, you get on that line. There's no way you can do that. But if you're a leader and you are upholding the standard that you expect from your people, then they can look at you without a doubt and say, like, I know for a fact she's not going to ask me to do anything she wouldn't do herself. She's not going to ask me to do anything that she is not actively, acting out. And I know for a fact when I'm doing 75 hard, I practice what I preach and then some. I'm going to exceed that standard that I'll ask of my people to lead from the front, which I think that just, it sharpens my leadership skills to a higher degree, and I love that.
And probably dampens any form of imposter syndrome, if that's something that you battle, or I know that that's something that you've vocalized, that you've felt at one time or another, and I would say that it certainly helps with that.
Yeah, it makes you so much more self-assured, because it's just a continual reliability to yourself. It strengthens that self-confidence. And then, because imposter syndrome, I think, comes from somewhere deep inside where you're thinking you're not actually who you are, or you're not actually worthy of the position you're in. But when you're continually executing on these things, you're strengthening those skills. You're stacking the evidence to prove that you're exactly who you are, and you're in that position for a reason. So I would definitely say that it helps. It's been a while since I've dealt with that imposter syndrome, and maybe it is because over the past several months we've been on 75 hard.
So people may be curious, those that haven't done 75 hard, or have read a little bit about it, but they've never felt like they wanted to dive in, or knew just enough about it where they got scared off. So what do you think the most common things are that people use as an excuse to not do 75 hard? Or let's not even go down the path yet of modifying 75 hard, the cardinal sin.
Okay, well, if you guys are watching, we do these on YouTube as well. I'm actually getting a cramp in my calf, so if you see me start to do a little stretching here, don't mind me. So I think that is the question why people don't want to do it or talk themselves out of it, or why people fail?
Why do you think, what do you think the most common excuse is for not doing 75 hard?
I would split it in half, and I think a lot of it, so I think that one, the people say that there's no way they could do it, it's a lack of self-belief, and then the other person will say this, but I think it's an umbrella of, they think that they couldn't do it. They know that they would fail, is their mindset, another self-limiting belief. But I would say that second person would argue that it's not sustainable, would argue that it's not healthy, that it would develop an unhealthy relationship with exercise or food. And I think deep down, the person that says that, it is under the umbrella of, it's a lack of self-belief. They're scared to do it because they're scared to fail.
Yeah. And I don't know, the whole unhealthy relationship with food thing, that's a touchy subject, because depending on the circumstance, somebody may or may not be going into 75 hard having had issues with food in the past, and that's totally understandable. But there is no defined diet. You define the diet. And diet is, I don't like that word, but it's the most overarching term you can use to define what you need to do to follow the program. Your diet could be not, if you're somebody who is a cereal fast food eater, or you indulge in sweets way too much, you could say, okay, I'm not going to have any sweets for 75 days, or I am not going to have any fast food for 75 days. It doesn't have to be the keto diet. It doesn't have to be no carbs. It doesn't have to be some extreme thing. We track macros. Lexi already talked about that. And we define what our own macros are dependent upon what our goals are over the next 75 days. And that can be one thing or another depending on the time of year, what my particular goals are, what your particular goals are. But I think that conversation about having an unhealthy relationship with working out or food, I think that's just a cop out personally, and I think that truthfully, it's teaching yourself that you can do so much more than what you give yourself credit for, and at the end of the day, and at the end of the 75 days, if you do it correctly, you will be so fully aware of your potential and so liberated. That's the one overarching word I would use to define how I feel at the end of 75 hard every time is liberated, because it's hard to describe how great it feels to know that you executed a plan perfectly and you did exactly what you set out to do, and the results show it.
Yeah. And just to kind of go back to, if you do have an unhealthy relationship with food and that's something you struggle with, and if you were a client that came to me with that, I wouldn't recommend 75 hard. That is not my recommendation for someone that's really struggling with food. But you do need to seek help in that instance. So I just wanted to circle back, because more often than not, the answer is simplification, but bringing in someone that can be an outside set of eyes and a voice of reason with that battle that you continue to have, it's invaluable. So just to kind of go back to that, because it wouldn't be I don't think that's the route you go directly into it, but I have had clients successfully. One of my clients actually that just finished it alongside us, she started the exact same day as us, and she has a history of disordered eating, and she had mentioned in the past, like, it was something that she really had thought about for a really long time, kind of bounced back and forth, and someone had told her, I just don't think it's a good idea for you considering your history. But she was at a point where, she had developed food freedom because she'd been tracking macros with us for a while. She understood what her body needed and, how that went into play and how to execute on that day in and day out. But so she was at a point where she was comfortable to do it, and she saw a great amount of success in it. At the end of it, I think her takeaway in that message she had sent me, she said, an unparalleled level of badassery and just a confidence that I never knew I could have, which is that's exactly how you feel.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's liberating. I love that word that you would use.
And that's, take it straight from the horse's mouth. Who better to tell you than somebody who's experienced it? Because I haven't experienced it, but I think that's incredible for somebody to have, defied the odds and did the thing that that people say can't be done, or they try to say that it can't be done.
What would your piece of advice for someone that has never done 75 hard? What is your piece of advice going into it to get the most out of the program?
That's a hard one. I guess I would say go in with an open mind, because if you have this predetermined idea of what it is you're going to experience, or if you go in thinking, okay, well, if I make it 10 days, then I'll keep going. But if I'm not feeling it by day 10, I'm going to call it quits. Like that sort of mentality. If you're not, you have to buy in mentally, because again, it's a mental development program. It's not a fitness program. It's not a fitness challenge. It's a mental development program. So it's about the mental aspect of it. So if you go into it with the wrong mentality, then you're probably not going to make it all the way through, one, but two, you're never going to see the benefits that we're describing here. And the reason I ask you that initial question of, why do you think that most people don't do it, is simply because I think that for listeners who haven't done it or have thought about doing it but haven't ever taken that step, I think that it's important for them to know, like, it's easy for us to say, it's our fourth time through, it's kind of a normal thing by now, and we can talk about it in a lot different light than what people probably want to hear whenever they haven't ever done it before. But I think that the biggest thing for those of you who may want to do it, or if there's somebody that's around you that's thinking about doing it, is don't have this huge build up prior to, and make it out to be something that it's not. It's a day by day progression. It's one foot in front of the other. It's not, you can't go into it and think, holy cow, what do I have over the next 75 days that I'm going to miss out on? Because then it's going to be this huge thing, this huge obstacle in your mind. You have to approach it by, with a day by day approach.
And if you go into it thinking about everything I'm going to miss out on and everything I'm going to have to sacrifice, then you're looking at it from a point of restriction. Then you're essentially putting that unhealthy relationship, like, you're putting that on yourself. Whereas if you look at those, and I'm always someone, I'm looking at the stair, not the whole staircase, like he had said, just take it one day at a time. But looking and saying, well, I'm sacrificing this, I'm missing out on this. But think about the way that your brain is going to develop. Think about your leadership skills developing. Think about your relationships developing, your mental and physical health developing, and all that you can gain in just 2.5 months. 2.5 months is such a blimp on the radar when, like, in the grand scheme of things. And if you just invest, not sacrifice, that I had mentioned that in my post, like, our priorities as a whole sometimes get so skewed because you're thinking about, if I miss happy hour with my coworkers this Friday, then what are they going to think about me? Like, what are they going to say? Where you have no issue compromising on going to the gym with yourself or waking up 30 minutes earlier to read. And the reading is invaluable. It is so important. Just being intentional about the content you consume. We just are so quick to bend on our own standards, or the standards that we say are important to us, but actions they speak so much louder than words. And at the end of the day, like, what you say is important to you and what you act on are two stark differences if they don't align. And it is very telling when, you can see the outcome of someone's life or the outcome of someone's actions. That tells me everything I need to know about their priorities.
100%. What do you think one of the biggest things is, like, character trait wise, that carries over from 75 hard into your daily regimen after you're finished with it?
Yeah, so I think that first off, it should be something that carries over. And Brett had mentioned it's kind of our norm now, but I think that it's worth saying this wasn't our norm prior to. We were fairly active before, but not long before that initial point when we did 75 hard, we didn't want to do it either. And we said we didn't want to do it. We convinced ourselves, like, we put it back several months because I didn't want to diet. I didn't want to know what was in my food. I didn't want to read. We didn't want to read self-help books. Like, people that read self-help books are like people laying on the couch in a shrink's office. That's exactly what I was thinking years ago. And now that is my favorite part of every single day, is waking up, having coffee, sitting on this couch with Brett and reading our books. And we do that behind this camera. We have shelves and shelves of self-development books. And that's our favorite part of every day. That's something that we've maintained beyond 75 hard. That's something that we kept. We continue to, exercise consistently and drink our water. And, the point of this program is to cultivate a lifestyle and a mentality that you want the best for yourself and you want to reach your potential each and every day. And if it's something where you use it as 75 days isolated, and then you just revert back to whatever state you were in before, then I don't believe that you did it right, and you definitely didn't take anything away from it, because it's not supposed to be an isolated event. It's supposed to be used as a launch pad to, accelerate your life in every sense of the word.
For sure. Yeah, if you finish 75 hard and then you go back to what you were doing before, then I would venture to say that you didn't do 75 hard correctly. Because what 75 hard should make you feel by the end of it, whenever I finish 75 hard, it's kind of a sad event. It's not like this fireworks thing where I think, holy cow, awesome, let's go to Andy's. And we have done that.
Andy's isn't Andy's ice cream.
Yes.
That's not
We have done that and then immediately regretted it. Like, we were like, I feel absolutely sick to my stomach just because we gorged ourselves.
The first time we did 75 hard, we had pizza and ice cream on day 76. And I woke up feeling so hungover. Like, I didn't drink a drop. That's another thing. You don't drink alcohol.
Oh,
and Brett and I really don't drink alcohol outside of 75 hard anyway. And that's definitely
shows
something.
How much it registers on my radar that
Yeah.
I didn't realize. We didn't even mention it.
Yeah, that's something that we also started the beginning, because we used to drink pretty regularly, much heavier in college. And then, like, we would still have beers at dinner or whatever. And now we don't really. But I felt so miserable and hungover after that pizza and ice cream that we just went back. And then ever since, the last 3 times we've done it, like, we have continued to eat the same thing we always do. We've tracked our macros. We've hit our numbers, because it's business as usual. Because that mentality doesn't even register to me anymore. And it kind of frustrates me sometimes to try and think about, why would you just spend 75 days, 2.5 months of your life putting your best foot forward and presenting each and every day with the absolute best version of yourself, only to reach a point where you're like, okay, whew, I can go back to being that person I was. I can go back to slacking off. The stakes are no longer there. Like, why? I can't register that at all.
Yeah. Really what it comes down to is, temporary satisfaction over your long-term goals. And I think that 75 Hard has a way of teaching you that it's not worth it to sacrifice your long-term goals for that short-term satisfaction. Like, that ice cream tasted amazing in the moment, but like an hour later, I was dragging, and I felt like I needed to lay down and let my belly flatten out, because it felt like I was gonna fall over. But if we want to have pizza, then we have a healthier relationship with food, where we can go and have a pizza and just enjoy ourselves, because we take care of our bodies really well. And that's not like, it's what you do 6 days out of the week that's going to determine where you go. It's not the one day or the one choice. Doesn't mean that you can't enjoy yourself every now and then. Like, that's life. It's the human experience. You need to do things that are out of the norm, but just, you can't make the excuse to, well, if I just have one slice of pizza, it's not that big of a deal. Because if you do that day after day after day after day, then what are you gonna have? It all accumulates. It's no different than, okay, well, I'm gonna read 10 pages every day. Which one do you think is gonna have a more positive result? I can't tell you how many books I've read by now that have had an impact on my life, or spurred a thought, or given me an inspiration to do something that I hadn't already either thought of doing or didn't think I was capable of doing. These books have a way of just continuing to enlighten me, giving me one extra tidbit that keeps me going.
Well, what has been your top 2 or 3 books that you've read so far?
Top 2 or 3. Magic of Thinking Big was awesome. I've read that more than once, but the first time was just enlightening. Extreme Ownership's really good. I'm gonna look over one. I love Slide Edge. Slide Edge was really good.
Yeah, the Slight Edge and Atomic Habits. If you're utilizing 75 Hard or as a launch pad to completely change your life, if you are looking for a lifestyle change or anything of that nature, the Slight Edge and Atomic Habits, I could not recommend more. That those two books simplify the process, and they give you that aha moment where you're like, "Oh my god, this actually isn't all that hard. It's just repetition. It's just continually making that promise and then delivering on that promise." Because we overcomplicate it so much, and I think a lot of times we overcomplicate the process, not talking 75 Hard, but just success in general. We overcomplicate it in order to give ourselves an out. Like,
Yeah.
someone had recently asked me, they were like, how do you not get bored with your workouts? Well, one, I think that expecting there to be something new and exciting every single day in your routine is a huge barrier to success for a lot of people, because then you're not allowing yourself that monotony and that quote unquote grind to improve and to develop that consistency and see those improvements and those gains. Because if you're constantly, the novelty's wearing off, so you hop on to the next exciting thing and you switch over to a new and exciting program, you're not developing that consistency where experience and development and progression happens. So you're kind of cutting yourself short. And when I was talking to Brett about this, I was like, I don't have to psych myself up to brush my teeth. I don't have to psych myself up to answer emails for work. Those are just things that need to get done. And at a point, that's what these things become. They become part of your rituals and your routines.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I was also thinking about Jim Collins. I can't not, if you like economics, business, that kind of thing, and it is a self-development book, because it's about like Good to Great. That's the name of the first book that you have read as well. That's in like a series of 3 or 4 books. Good to Great is a great book.
Built to Last is a good one.
Built to Last is the second one in the progression. Built to Last is an excellent book as well. I love the Jim Collins books. He is, I'll just kind of, without getting in the weeds there, he's an excellent author, and his team does amazing work.
Yeah, Brett really enjoys the economic side of things, which I really like.
Well, they study quantitative data in Good to Great, and they study qualitative data and turn qualitative data and measure it in quantitative way. It's very, very interesting.
It is. It's very well written too. 2 of my favorite books that are similarly written to one another, not necessarily to those, but Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell and Grit by Angela Duckworth. And both of them pull so many analytics, and my nerdy little brain just loves it, eats it up, and then puts it into perspective. So Outliers, for instance, I always bring it back to, like, that was one of the earlier books that I had read early on when I was starting my business. And at that same time, we were doing 75 Hard for the first time. And it kind of highlighted different success stories, whether it be Steve Jobs or the Beatles or Microsoft, or just a ton of a very wide range of success stories. And it had talked about it really wasn't anything spectacular about any of those individuals or those groups. There wasn't anything, innately special about Steve Jobs or about Bill Gates or any of these people. They were, it was preparation meets opportunity, and they were at the right time, the right age, and they went for it. So a little just backstory about Lexi J Wellness is that I was a dental hygienist, and I started recording workouts in an unfinished basement when COVID shut my gym down, because I saw everybody was working out from home. Nobody could work out in a gym.
Right over there.
Right in this basement that looks nothing like this now. If you're watching the YouTube version, before it was literally like cinder block walls, basically, like all concrete walls. I always joked that it's my done gym. It looked like a scene from Saw. And looking back, I don't know what gave me, I know exactly what gave me the audacity, actually. It was 75 Hard, but that was my window. And I really love the book, The Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, because it makes you think that despite how ordinary you may feel at times, and I know that we all feel that way, that you have every opportunity to do something special with yourself. You have every just as much chance to succeed and to be, you know, extraordinary as those people you read books from and those people you read books about. And reading that just instilled the empowerment in me and the confidence that I could do something incredible too.
Yeah. I think that on that same train of thought, that people get used to the people that are around them doing what they have always done, and we discussed this in the last episode. But I think that one of the biggest obstacles to people making progress is them feeling like they're going to be the odd one out. So if you feel like you don't want to make that step to do whatever it is that you think is going to make you start to go down a different path that's gonna be a lot better for you, then surround yourself with people that are doing the things that you wish you were doing, or the things that you aspire to do, whether that be just unfollowing a bunch of accounts on Instagram and starting to follow the accounts that inspire you and that align with your thought process,
or the thought process that you want to have.
Right. Yeah. Or joining a group. You know, not trying to plug Lexi J Wellness here constantly, but yeah, join Lexi J Wellness. You just get in the Facebook group, get exposed to people that are trying to get better themselves. Join a gym. You know, start to get tight knit with some people. Introduce yourself to people that are doing the things that you want to be involved with.
Yeah, a book club, an entrepreneurial group. One of my favorite quotes is, the best way to adopt a desired habit or a desired behavior is to join a culture where that behavior is considered normal. And if you're in your circle and everything you want for yourself is outside of that circle, and the people in your circle are not promoting or supporting those goals, it's time to look elsewhere. And that's a really uncomfortable pivot to make, I know, but you're not growing there. And if you look around and you're the smartest and you're the most accomplished and you're the most creative and you're every superlative, where is there to go but down? How are you supposed to learn from that? How are you supposed to grow and develop in a circle where you are every superlative?
Yeah. Surround yourself with people that are doing the things that you want to do as well, and the things that you aspire to be. Inevitably, that will have an effect on you, good or bad, you know, depending on, you know, who you're hanging out with. But yeah, surround yourself with good people, the ones that are doing positive things in their life, and it will inevitably rub off on you.
Yeah, I think that is something like maturity has brought me, because looking back, and I am uber competitive, that like my younger years, and I say this probably like high school Lexi, man, she wanted to be the smartest, the most talented, the most athletic, the most, you know, everything in that circle. I wanted to be the top. And thinking about that now, like, yes, of course, I always continue want to get better, but that's such an embarrassing thought, to always want to be that in my circle, because then you've met your ceiling. There's nowhere to go, because who's going to rub off on you? Who's going to teach you? Who's going to challenge you and push you to further yourself? And now I'm so proud to be, you know, in communities and circles where I have so much to learn, and I feel like I can be, you know, continually influenced by people that inspire me and that will push me to reach those those heights that I dream about and that we talk about consistently.
Yep. If you're the biggest fish in the pond, you need to start seeking out a different pond.
That's right.
Any closing thoughts about 75 Hard, takeaways, how you feel about it after the 4th time, how you feel about it since it's over?
I was honestly sad, and we have still like pretty much met all the qualifications the last few days since we finished, but it does make me feel like such a well-oiled machine. And people are probably listening to this thinking that it sounds very like robotic in me saying that, but I quite literally never feel as good physically, mentally, emotionally. I never feel like I have my faculties aligned like I do when I'm on 75 Hard. I feel so much more, or I feel so much less anxious. That has helped my anxiety so much, because I know for a fact that I'm going to deliver on the promises that I keep myself. And as a byproduct of taking care of yourself physically, you're going to have so much better energy to deliver on every other avenue of your life that may be causing those anxieties. So that's a fun byproduct. I also love, experiencing physical changes, albeit very small, because my transformation wasn't very dramatic, but I love seeing progress, visual progress, whether it's me being stronger, being able to lift a little bit heavier. Those are really exciting, but I'm already eager and chomping at the bit for the next time, just because I think that I have more to bring to the table, and I'm excited. I know that it brings out the best in me, genuinely. It's a transformative experience.
For sure.
Well, my friends, if you didn't notice already, we are on YouTube as well. So if you'd rather watch the videos, you're more than welcome to on our YouTube channels. But if you got any value out of it, or if you feel like someone could get some value out of it, we would appreciate it so much if you shared the show. But Brett and I are having a lot of fun so far. If you guys have any feedback for us, put it in the comments of the YouTube or the podcast. But until then, we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Ugh.